to the Peaceful Entrepreneur Podcast, where together we're learning how to have peace in the process of everyday business ownership by improving one step at a time how we think and what we do. I'm your host, Amy Stout. Welcome to Sober Happy Hour.
Unfortunately. And the first happy hour on video.
Yes. Hello to YouTube. We are having Sober Happy Hour just because it's in the middle of the afternoon.
It's like 3:45.
And we have things to do later. So
yeah, I'm going to work out after this, and I don't know if
I am too.
That's right, you are too. I don't know if being tipsy while working out is a good idea.
Yeah, probably not. But we do have our seltzer and lime.
We do.
So at least there's something exciting going on around here.
Cheers.
Cheers. Aw, it's been a minute.
It has.
Since we've recorded a happy hour.
It's been a whole season.
Yeah.
Basically.
And a little more because we took some breaks.
We took a little break during the summer. Yeah.
So you can see us.
Unfortunately.
Watch us interact and watch how different our skin tones are.
True. I make the joke that if you put our skin tones together, we would make a really good yin and yang.
True. And it's really a toss-up what our kids are going to turn out like.
Yeah, we have no idea.
No idea.
We're hoping for at least like one of each, I think, probably.
Yeah.
But I think even you've said like you'd rather them have my skin tone because we love the beach.
Yeah.
And so we would not want to put our kids through that.
The torture that I go through.
Speaking of which, interesting story for you that I just heard from a friend today, actually. Buddy was just at the beach, and he and the group he was with, the place they were staying at had a shibumi, like they were at an Airbnb, and they used it, and he got sunburnt through the shibumi.
That's a problem.
Which is a bummer because those are like $300. If you don't know what a shibumi is, they're all over the beaches here in North Carolina. But it's like instead of a traditional umbrella on the beach, right? You set up like a pole that's kind of in a half circle that goes down into the sand that stands up maybe about 7 feet up to, depending on how you adjust it. And then it's got like a huge flap, and you line it up into the wind with a sandbag that holds it down. And the wind just holds the flap up. So it creates like a tent, so there's a big covering, but there's no there's not like putting up an umbrella and worried about it flying away. Cause you're kind of like, this relies on the wind. It's
a lot easier to set up.
It is. Yeah.
It's like the parachute material. So it's just like flying in the wind. You get to see my arm. And that's what you really get to see now that we're on video is all of my hand motions that I make when I talk.
That's true. That's true.
We'll throw in some sign language sometime.
But yeah, so anyways, who knows? Hopefully our kids won't have to deal with too much sunburn.
Yeah, I will be very vigilant about sunscreen for sure, regardless.
Yes, definitely. Definitely.
Do you have something to start us out with?
I do, actually.
Okay.
It's just, the thing about this podcast is it gives me an opportunity to, I feel like a lot of podcasts are like, you're just talking about the most random stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And at least the podcasts I listen to. And it's like, this is a place where that side of my brain can just come out and flourish.
Yeah, I love that.
So this is just a little brain tease for you just to think about throughout the episode. And you at home can think about this as well. Why do we say, I don't remember when this came to me. I have this written down from a while ago. Why do we say, because summer is coming to an end. It's almost fall here in the States. Sadly, in North Carolina, things are not really cooling off too much. It's still been high 80s, low 90s the last couple days. But why do we call it like a crisp fall day or like a crisp fall morning?
Crisp.
Why do we say crisp? Because crisp is like,
the air.
You think about like you bite into like a crisp apple with like a good crunch.
Yeah.
A crisp piece of paper,
Yeah.
Why, what's crisp about the air?
It's like the first cool of the season is akin to like the crispness of the apple.
So that's all I'm trying to say is I don't understand it. I genuinely don't. So that's just a little brain tease for you.
Little brain tease.
Yeah, because air is not crispy.
To each their own, I guess.
It's not crispy.
Speaking of brain teasers and icebreakers, my idea was that I haven't shared with you for this episode is last session for our community group at church, Luke was put in charge of coming up with all the icebreakers for the group.
Yes.
And we had he did his research and had 15 or 20 different icebreaker questions, because that's what we start each group with. We go around and answer them. And so I thought that we could answer a couple icebreakers.
Oh, brother.
Do you
Let's
still
hear it.
have it?
Do I have that list?
Yeah.
Here's a good one. If you could have an endless supply of any food, what would it be?
So my first instinct is to go with my favorite food, but I don't feel like that's actually what I should.
I think there's different ways you can play it, right? It can be
Yeah.
something that you need,
Mm-hmm.
right? That you're just I could eat this at every meal and, be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's something you can't get a lot,
Mm.
maybe, right? Something that you don't have the opportunity to eat very often, but you really like.
Probably sushi.
Sushi.
Yeah.
Sushi for breakfast.
Yeah. Breakfast sushi and lunch
Breakfast sushi.
and dinner sushi.
Yeah.
Because it's so
That's good.
expensive, so I have to hold myself back from ordering a ton when I'm out. But if I had an endless supply, I could just eat to my heart's content.
That's good. That's good. I'm going to say, honestly, off the top of my head, if you put me up against, if you put a gun to my head right now and made me answer right away, the first thing that comes to mind, believe it or not, is mango. I love mango.
Okay.
It is great. And we just don't get it a lot.
No, we
Obviously, I don't know what mango season is, but you can't just go to the store any time of year and get a good one, I feel like. So maybe I need to find out when that is. But Trader Joe's mangoes are really good. So I would say mango, I think.
It's a good one. Okay, what's the next icebreaker?
Another one. Let's see here. What smell or image triggers nostalgia for you?
Crisp fall air. Actually, kind of, though. I don't know.
Really?
I'm just thinking, I've been nostalgic recently about the holiday season, especially Thanksgiving, because I have such good memories of it at our house that I grew up in the mountains. And my parents sold that house, so I will never have a holiday there anymore.
Right.
I've just been recently thinking about it because we're coming up on them, and just the nostalgia of food cooking in that kitchen and looking outside and seeing the leaves turn, and since it's the mountains, the air's extra crisp.
Yes.
And just gathering a family there, that's got me really nostalgic lately.
That's good. Yeah, I feel like there are a lot of things for me. I'm a very nostalgic person just in general, but I think one that always takes me back to childhood is waking up to the smell of bacon cooking. That makes me, because Dad would make bacon on Saturday morning, and so I was probably sleeping in a little later than usual, but that was not very late for me. Yeah, 7:15 instead of 7 o'clock. Yeah. And so waking up to that smell was oh, we're going to have a great breakfast this morning.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
I love that. A lot of people said fresh cut grass.
Yes. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do one more.
One more. Okay, here's a quick one. If someone offered you $1 million to give up your smartphone forever, would you do it?
Absolutely.
You would?
Goodbye.
Yeah. Yeah, it said, the prompt said smartphone, not phone. So you could still call people if you had to.
Right.
But no social media, no Instagram.
I would love to get rid of all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That'd be great.
I think I would do it only because I think I'd probably become more productive.
I would be sad about listening to podcasts and stuff, but I guess I could do that on a computer.
No, yeah, you can still do that on the computer.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you have an Apple Watch, if you need it on the go, you can listen to it on there.
But then you can't have an
AirPods.
Apple Watch if you don't have a smartphone.
Not if it has service.
That's true. Ways around the rule.
Loopholes.
Loopholes. Okay, so today we're going to be sharing a story that we teased in the last happy hour episode.
If you can remember back that far, because I can't.
It was a long time ago, like we said.
Was.
We told our engagement story, which is a pretty entertaining one. So if you didn't listen to the last happy hour, you can check that one out. But we have another pretty awesome story.
Funny story, yeah.
From our dating life, kind of. And we wanted to share that because it's one of those cool stories. You see TikToks about this kind of thing, And it's the story of how we met before we actually met.
Yeah.
And
do you want me to start?
Yes.
Okay.
And I will just say, like, when this happened and we realized what had happened, I was like, that would be so cool to tell at our wedding.
And sure enough.
And we got to tell it at our wedding, which was special. So yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so most of the story, I guess, happened on my side of things, I guess, anyway, right? For the most part. But so it was the summer before our freshman year of college. So summer of 2015, I guess, right? I was at orientation at UNCG in Greensboro. And it was like the last day of orientation. My parents were there with me, and so we were like getting ready to head out that day. Like all the stuff, all the happenings were over, and so we were out in front of like the student center on this nice lawn area. And my mom, like most moms, was like, "Oh, we should take pictures, like to remember this. Oh, let me get a picture of you, Luke." And so she's like taking pictures of me in front of the student center.
She'll appreciate that invitation.
Yeah, yes, definitely. Sorry, I love you, Mom. Like taking pictures like of me in front of the student center, and me as I guess then still 17-year-old, 18-year-old. Yeah, 18-year-old. I was like, all right, this is great. Like, let's get it over with and go.
That's still how he is.
Yeah, still how I am. And then after that, my mom was like, "Oh, we should take a picture of the three of us." And so she flagged some random person down. It's like, "Excuse me, like, will you take a picture of the three of us real quickly?" And the person was like, "Yeah, sure." And so took the picture and handed the phone back to my mom. Mom was like, "Oh, thank you so much." And so don't think anything of it. That's kind of the end, right? And
that's June.
That is June of 2015. So that same year, it was like November. It was like a little while before.
Well, we met.
Right. Well, we met
September
during in
year.
School. Yeah, we met in school, which I think we've talked about that before. Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe not.
But we can tell that story if people are interested. But we met September
of our freshman year, and became kind of part of the same friend group after a while.
Mm-hmm.
And the short of it is developed feelings for each other, I think, pretty quickly. And so I didn't date at all in high school. Just had so much going on. So like I'm it's like I'm just not gonna date. And so I think we have talked about this maybe.
I don't remember. It's a good review.
Either
in
way.
Case people haven't listened.
Yeah. So it's like early November maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom, my family knew about Amy because like they hadn't met you at that point, I don't think, but they knew like who you were. I think I probably talked about you, and of course my mom and my sisters were like, "Oh, he's interested in a girl, whatever," and so they were excited about that. So the whole time that freshman year, like after I met her in the dorm, I'm like, I know her from somewhere. Like she looks so familiar. And I'm like racking my brain, trying to think, was she a friend of a friend in Charlotte where I grew up? Like, and I saw her like when I was in high school. I played basketball, and so like we traveled around the state a lot. So I was like, was she like a player on like a girls team? Or like, was she a cheerleader or like someone I just saw? Mm-hmm. Like, and I just remembered her face. And
I did end up meeting your family because they came to town and we went. They took us.
That's right. They took us
with our friend group.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
They
took
did
us all
meet
to lunch.
me in person.
Yes,
like in November-ish.
Yes, yeah. And so I don't think I told you that. Like you reminded me of someone.
You never told me. No.
During that point, because I was just like trying to figure. I was like, man, where do I know her from? And so I told Mom and my sister that, and so they were trying to think too. And so I'm in class one day. And I get
right before Christmas break?
It was pretty soon before like Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I get a call, and of course I had to let it go to voicemail because I was in class. But I listened to the message when I get out of class, and it's my mom and my sister, the older of my two sisters. And they're like, "Luke, call us back as soon as you can. We know where you know Amy from. We figured it out. Call us back." And so I get back to my dorm room, and I FaceTime them, and they're like, "We figured it out. Like, you will not believe this." Like, they're like, "We remember how you said you recognized her, but couldn't remember where you knew her from." And turns out there the picture that my mom took of took of me in front of the student center on UNCG's campus. If you look in the background of that picture, Amy is like walking towards us, like facing the camera, pretty far back behind me, so blurry, but you can tell it's her pretty obviously with the red hair and like the colors she was wearing and the pale skin and the chacos. It's pretty obvious. Like, couldn't be anybody else. And so I was like, that is hilarious. Like, oh my gosh. So I called Amy or told you when you got out of class, and we were just, laughing about it. Like, oh, that's so funny. I was like, that's where I know her from. So then we remembered, Mom was like, well, then you remember we took that picture of the three of us. So by the time that happened, Amy had been walking towards us in that big open area, and Mom had asked her to take a picture of the three of us.
And I remember doing it.
And Amy had taken the picture.
Yeah.
And Mom said later, months later, like I think after we started dating officially that next year, that next calendar year, so like in like February, she was like, Luke, when we had her take that picture, I just remember thinking, Lord, please help him to meet someone nice like this girl. Because she was like, oh, that girl was so nice. She was like, please let him find somebody nice like this. And I went exactly after what she was hoping for, I guess. So
cool.
It's hilarious.
So cool. I love that story. It's so fun.
It's a good one. It was a great one. Did you have anything you wanted to add on to that?
You did a great job. No. That was it.
So anyway, my mom and my sister Cameron told that story
at the wedding, which was we showed the picture,
which was great. Yeah, we showed the picture and everything.
Yeah, we can put that on the YouTube. We can pop the picture up one.
Yeah, maybe so.
Maybe says the editor. We'll see what he can do. I love it. Well, that was June of 2015, and now we're in September of 2023, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to tell a different story and just some different experiences because we just got to go to Glacier National Park in Montana, and it was such a fun adventure, and we just had the best time, and I just thought it'd be fun to share a little bit about our experience.
Definitely.
And Luke is wearing his hat.
I'm wearing my hat. Very on brand.
Yep, I bought a t-shirt and Luke bought 2 hats. So that is pretty on brand for us.
Very.
Love it. So we got the opportunity to do this because my parents have been traveling full time with a pull-behind camper for the last year. And so we have tagged along on some of their trips. So last year we went to San Diego with them. And then this year we did Montana. And then we have an idea of maybe another trip we can do with them next year. But we're having a great time tagging along. And it was both of our first time out to Montana. I've done like the out west stuff, but more like the southern.
Yeah, further south.
Yeah. Have you done this?
I have not.
You haven't done this?
I've been like West Coast, but not any of those like Utah, Nevada. None of that.
All I really knew about Glacier is we'd watched this like National Geographic documentary about all the different national parks. I just remember.
And there was an episode on Glacier.
Yeah. So I remembered that episode, but I don't even remember how the idea came up for us to join them, but it did, and we planned on it. And so my parents basically planned their trip to go through Glacier, and then we booked our flights to meet them out there once they arrived. And so we had 5 full days in the park, and we saw a really good sampling of the entire thing, I feel like.
The whole park, other than the Canadian side, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
But we got a really good sense of a lot of the different areas, and we saw a ton of wildlife. We did some amazing hikes. So I think we can just share a little bit about that because people who may be going to Glacier could kind of glean a little bit from our experience.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
We're by no means professionals, but we do know how to have a good time.
We we stayed in a little cabin on the campground that my parents were parked at, which is cool. There's a bunch of little cabins all over there.
Yeah, there's a lot of good places to stay as you get kind of one of the closest towns to the west entrance, which is probably the main entrance, I think, in the States, is Columbia Falls. And it's like 20 minutes from the entrance. So
that's where we stayed.
That was great. And there's, all sorts of different places, campgrounds and stuff you can stay at between there and the entrance to the park. But there's no shortage of lodging or campgrounds. No,
but you probably have to book it pretty far in advance
to get that. To get that close, but also just in general, probably.
Yeah. Another thing is plan your trip at least 6 months out, because if you want to get into the park between the hours of 6 a.m. and 3 p.m., you have to have a pass to get on the road to get into the park. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's literally called like a driving pass. So it's not even like obviously there's a fee to get into the park, but we didn't have to pay that.
Because they have that
discount. Senior card.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But you have to have a pass to drive on the roads in there. And so you go in and select what area you're going to be in the park. And then you buy that pass to get in.
Yeah. And it's not ridiculously expensive. It's just
pretty cheap
to control how many cars are in the park at a time, because the parking is obviously limited.
Yeah.
And we even had to drive around and wait for a while, even
a couple days.
With
As some of the more popular spots, there was a little bit of a wait.
Yeah, so I understand why they do the pass thing, but
I'm glad they do it because it makes the roads not as crazy.
Yeah,
and it doesn't feel overcrowded. It's definitely full, but once you after you park and you get out on the trail, it's some places you do feel like you're the only person out there, depending on where you are.
I guess we can talk about the different areas that we went to. The main road is called Going to the Sun is the name of the road, and it basically cuts the park in half. And so you can drive from the west entrance to the east entrance on this road.
All the way through the park.
Yeah. And there's a ton of different pull-offs and outlooks and trails and lodges and lakes all along the road. It's a 50-mile road, but it takes
something like that. It takes
an hour and a half to drive it.
It takes 2 hours.
Yeah, because of the traffic and the elevation
and how fast. I mean, the speed limit's pretty slow.
Right.
And some of those mountains you're driving on the edge of mountains, and you're kind of.
It's so gorgeous. You
around.
Could just driving the road in itself is an event.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely, you get to see a lot, which is cool.
I would say we did kind of the highlight trails.
We did.
The first one we did was called Trail of the Cedars and Avalanche Lake, which is probably one of the most popular ones you hear about.
Yeah.
But it's walking through the middle of the woods.
Yeah. It kind of starts as like Trail of the Cedars. A lot of that is there's parts of it that are more accessible for older people or people in wheelchairs, even because part of it is paved and there's some boardwalk. So that's pretty easy to get around. And then that splits off into that second trail, which goes which is a little more strenuous.
Yeah. And it lets out at this gorgeous lake that I guess has been formed by a glacier. Or glaciers. And you can see on the mountains, you can see the trail that the glaciers
created. Yeah.
Oh, stunning. Cool. Yeah. Absolutely stunning.
Yeah. I think one of the coolest things too is the difference in obviously the changes in elevation and wildlife depending on where you are in the park, but also just the temperature drop when you drop. I mean, once you get into the park, the temperature drops 10 degrees.
Yeah.
Like that. It's crazy. And then obviously once you get up higher, it gets chillier and it's breezy when you're up higher because there aren't as there's not as much tree cover, but it's interesting to see looking at all the mountains where the tree line stops and all of that, just seeing the difference in the terrain. But one thing that I thought was pretty cool was up near Logan's Pass, which is kind of the middle of that row of Going to the Sun Road. I think I want to say it's kind of you're driving through a pass kind of, so you're kind of going up and over a mountain kind of, and there's a bunch of good hikes that start from that area. And so we did one that was pretty easy. It was just strenuous the first part,
It's just like straight up. A bunch of stairs.
Yeah, it was a bunch of stairs, which was funny, but it takes you over this little mountain and you get to see down into this valley and see Hidden Lake, which is a very fitting name because it is tucked away.
You can't see it until you get to the very end of the trail.
Yeah, once you get to the very end of the trail, which is really beautiful. And then from the other side of that is the Highline Trail, starting at kind of the same area, which is one of the most famous trails.
Yeah.
One of them, it's pretty strenuous. I think all in all, it's like 11 miles, 9, 10, 11, somewhere in there.
We did like 3.5 of it.
Yeah, we did just a little bit of that because we didn't have a lot of time. But that one is beautiful because it goes, again, you kind of are, for parts of it, walking along the side of a mountain. I mean, there's spots where it's like, there's spots where you're walking on rock and it's pretty straight down to the road. And they've got a little guideline for you to hold on to make you feel better. But that one was really fun.
That was cool.
And that's where we saw a grizzly bear.
Yep. I'm so glad we saw one.
Yes, from a safe distance. He was about 75 to 100 yards away from us by the time we got out there because people were like telling us on the trail, like, hey, there's a grizzly out there. So
just beware.
Just keep your eyes open. So that was really cool.
Yeah.
He was huge. He was massive. I mean, he was probably 9 feet tall when he stood up.
Yeah. Apparently he was on the trail for a little bit, like chasing the squirrels. And then by the time we got there, he had gone down past the trail and it was kind of at a slant, like there was meadow almost.
It was a meadow kind of on a pretty steep incline.
Yeah.
Where there were a bunch of switchbacks kind of going up over a ridge. And he had like come over the ridge.
He'd come over the ridge and he was going down
chasing the ground squirrels.
The incline into the meadow. And then there was huckleberries in the meadow. And so by the time we got there, he was literally, or she, I don't know. But they were just sitting
on his haunches.
Yeah. We saw it just like
berries.
Walk up and
hilarious.
Sit down and just move his head around and eat the berries.
Great.
It was so cute.
It was funny. And then on that same trail on our way back, we turned around, we saw some bighorn sheep, which are beautiful.
Yep.
They got up on some rocks and posed for us.
Yes.
Which was amazing.
Super cool.
Yep. We also saw some mountain goats, some billy goats.
Up on the Hidden Lake.
Yep.
And then we did see some deer on Highline. We also saw deer on a lot of other trails. But that Logan's Pass was like the most wildlife we saw.
Yeah, that area.
Yeah.
Definitely. We saw, like some marmots.
Yes.
Up there. We saw a big old whistle pig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a bird. Now I'm not going to remember. Remember it like starts with a P?
A ptarmigan.
A ptarmigan. Good job.
Ptarmigan.
A ptarmigan. We didn't see any, but those are some birds that are up there. And then the other wildlife, like the highlight wildlife that we saw, is that same day after we did the Highline and saw, like the day before we had seen the mountain goats, and then on the Highline we saw the bear and the deer and the sheep. Yep. And then that afternoon we went to Lake McDonald, which is one of the 2 big lakes along the going to the Sun Road. There's lakes everywhere. Right. But those are the 2 big ones. It's one of the 2 big ones.
Yeah, it's like 8 miles long or something.
Yeah, it's really long.
Yeah.
And so we took a little dinghy motorboat out and we started on the very end of it. And I don't even know how far we went in. But there's the whole far side of the lake. So on one side of the lake is it's like a lodge and the road and all of that. But the opposite side is
just forest,
private property and forest.
And forest, yeah.
And so it's very undisturbed.
Yeah.
And my mom had known that there were some eagles over there.
Yep.
And so like I'd heard her mention them, and we were maybe a mile out into the middle of the lake, and I was just looking over and I saw a bald eagle sitting in a tree, and we had our binoculars. So all of us took turns and we got to see it. Yep. And it just sat there and was just looking out. Yeah.
He was just chilling. And then we saw 2 juvenile bald eagles shortly thereafter that were hanging out in the same area. And they just obviously don't much smaller and don't have the white head yet at that
Right.
age. They haven't
Yeah.
developed that, so they're all just kind of like brownish black.
Yeah.
But yeah, would definitely recommend going to Glacier. There's a ton of stories we could tell, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But
We gotta at least talk about Pole Bridge and Mini Glacier too. Because that was just like you could spend your whole trip on going to the Sun Road.
Yeah.
If you wanted.
Yeah. One of the areas on the east side of the park that you can drive through going to the Sun and get there quicker, but we drove around the park because we didn't have a pass for going to the Sun that day.
Mm-hmm.
And that side of the park near Mini Glacier is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Swiss-inspired lodge there that you can stay at that's right on a lake.
So gorgeous.
Beautiful. We took a boat across one lake, hiked a quarter of a mile, took another boat through that lake.
Yeah.
And that got us kind of near, close to like the middle of the park, kind of.
Grinnell Glacier.
Yeah, near Grinnell Glacier, which is like the big glacier that's still there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in that area. And so Amy and I were hiking a pretty strenuous hike, and her parents were going on a guided hike.
Mm-hmm.
So they had gotten off. We had all gotten off the boat. Amy and I had taken off because we were trying to use the daylight as much as we could. And so we were like climbing up, doing a bunch of switchbacks on the side of the mountain so we could see down at the lake still and like see the people on the other side of the lake. And we're watching them, and I turn around and I look, and sure enough, there's a humongous moose walking through the water. And brief science lesson. Moose do not have a way to cool themselves off. They can't pant like a dog. They can't
Sweat.
breathe. Yeah, they can't sweat. They can't breathe.
They can't breathe.
They can't like breathe a bunch to cool themselves off or anything, Yeah. So what they have to do is they just get in the water.
Mm-hmm.
And the water there is pretty cold, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just get in the water and walk around and, lay down or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was like walking in the water. And so we're like, oh my gosh, trying to get pictures because he was pretty far away from us, from where we were, because we were up so high. And then we look over and there's a second moose that has come out of the woods into the water, maybe 75 yards from the other moose.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one was pretty close to where the people are. And they tell you to not get more than, to not get within, maybe 20 yards of a moose because
Science
they're pretty
lesson part 2.
Yeah, but science lesson part 2, they are stupid. And
They're
their
literally
brains, their brains are about the
brains.
size of a walnut. And they can't see.
They have really
very
bad
well.
vision.
They cannot see. So if they see something that they think is threatening, they just charge. They don't care.
They don't know what it is, so they just charge it.
Yeah, wouldn't that be funny if that's how we were as humans? You feel threatened and you just charge whatever it is, just run straight at it. So the female apparently had a calf.
That was
which
the
is
first
a baby
that we
moose.
saw.
Yeah, the first one, a young moose, a calf, and it was hidden
away.
in the woods.
Yeah,
and she felt threatened that this male moose was there, which was the second one, and so she starts running through the water,
charges the other moose,
charging the other moose, and the other moose starts running away because he's scared, and so he starts running up onto the shore near where all the people are, and you look down and it just looks like ants, scattering up into the woods,
running away.
And so thankfully he didn't run towards them, he ran away from them, but apparently he did hang out on the trail for a while, so they had to wait to start that guided hike. But they were beautiful, and that hike was awesome because the closer you get to the glacier, you see more of the flower in the water, which comes off of the glacier and kind of sits on the top, and it gives the water a real blue look. It's like milky blue.
Yeah, if you ever see pictures of Glacier and the water is icy,
it doesn't
light
look real.
blue, bright, that is sediment coming off of the glacier into the water. It's wild.
It's crazy.
And it gets brighter the closer to the glacier you get. So we were in an area that had 3 levels of lakes. And so the bottom one that we took the boat across just looked normal.
Looked like normal water.
The next one up that we hiked up and looked down at was this brilliant, really pretty, medium turquoise. But there's another one that we didn't get to, but it is even brighter and lighter.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah, pretty neat.
And then the last little place that we got to talk about is Pole Bridge. which is on the west side, further north, like toward Canada. And we drove up there for the day. And there is a park entrance up there. But before the park entrance, there's a little town called Polbridge. And it's got a mercantile store. And so we went because this store is famous for its bakery. And they have huckleberry bear claws and a ton of other incredible
stuff.
Pastries and stuff like that. And so we went up and had that. And Luke his water bottle had broken on the trip. And so we were on a mission to find a new water bottle. And so he's got a new Nalgene Polbridge mercantile water bottle.
Got to go off the grid to get it.
Yep.
In that town, it's like that mercantile store. There's like a little restaurant and some cabins and some old farm buildings that have been renovated. But other than that, there's nothing out there.
It's just, that's it.
You got to drive pretty far to get.
But it was crowded. I mean, people were.
Yeah, there were a lot of people over there.
Yeah, it draws a crowd. So it was such a cute little place. I loved. And Whitefish is a cute little town that's like 10 minutes from Columbia Falls. And it was just an adorable little place to explore. So there's like
close to a big like ski resort. So that's like their main thing.
So there's just so many little fun places to explore. We were saying we could have spent 2 weeks
easily
and not gotten bored.
Yeah.
So we definitely want to go back. We had an incredible time, and Luke, he could spend every day hiking like that.
I could live out there.
He was at his happiest.
I was in my happy place.
Yeah. So
definitely would recommend going if you're thinking about it.
Yep. And we'll see what adventure we have next. But that's our happy hour episode for you today. Thank you for joining us. And if you're watching, thank you for joining on YouTube. And we'll see you for the next happy hour.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us for today's episode. Don't forget to connect with us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. And we would love it if you would leave a review wherever you're listening. We'll see you next week for more tips for how to become a peaceful entrepreneur.